Should be most of the council. Full side numbers, the entire project team will probably have one.
I've reached out to every former board member I could find. Certainly Mr. Dickinson, Mr. Simonian, I know. I tried to reach Patty Turner. She can't make it. Adriana will be there as well. Good. Any reports from the Finance and Audit Committee other than tonight's vote on the budget?
No, sir.
Finance Committee? Our Safety Month board homework. Identify unsafe things in our homes. Me, it was my table saw, which I no longer use. Has that sort of effect. There's actually a story there. Our former board member, Bill Dickinson, had a accident and lost a finger. And he sold me his piano for a very good price. It's a true story.
Wow.
How can you fix it? How can you implement a fix for that spot?
Well, you mean table saw?
Yeah, got rid of it.
Just not using it.
Okay.
I mean, totally stop using. Because I'm taking piano lessons and it would be that would kind of be disruptive for my lessons.
Sell your piano.
Yeah. Good. Anybody else want to chip in?
Imagine it's 6:30 in the evening on a Tuesday, and you've got two people that are normally very, very careful and watchful are cooking dinner, and there's lots of hot pans and hot water and plates and burners on the stove, and a paper towel could easily fall down on one of the hot elements and catch fire, or you could turn around quickly and run into each other. And the solution is that you've got to stop being stupid and slow down and look around. We haven't had accidents. We've come close a few times.
The most dangerous thing in my house is my dog, because he likes to lie down like in doorways, especially like where you can't see him. So I trip on him and fall down at least once a month. I'm not sure what to do about my dog. If anyone has any recommendations. I mean, I guess just more dog aware. It sometimes feels like he's doing it on purpose.
They're pretty smart.
Yeah.
I was thinking about my safety risks, and the three I came up with all age related. As you get older, your reaction time, your ability to see and hear things can diminish. And I run every other day, and in the street because the asphalt's better than tripping on a sidewalk. But as you get older, the sounds of airplanes, which now fly out over Alexandria rather than down the river, traffic, e-bikes, e-scooters, you can't hear stuff as well as I used to. So it's a matter of taking more distance between me and other things, stopping and turning and looking rather than over my shoulder, which tends to turn the hip, which turns the ankle, and then you step your foot down and you find yourself in an uncomfortable place where you end up getting hurt. So it's just being more cautious. And the other things were related to, I am getting, my front of the house does not have gutter guards. And I go up on the ladder 4 times a year. So we get gutter guards. It's only one story. So fall wouldn't be fatal, but it wouldn't feel good. So gutter guards would be on the list of to-dos.
Good.
Bill, do you have anything?
Yeah, so kind of a combination of a couple of things that have been said. So the walkway in our garage is the sports equipment zone for my son. And that's where we walk our 2 dogs that tend to pool and do different things. So the combination between pooling dogs and a random baseball or baseball bat or soccer ball or football can be pretty painful. So it's cleaning up, doing a little spring cleaning and cleaning up that walkway. So it's clear. So you're not trying to dodge it as my 90-pound Rottweiler is pulling me one way or the other.
Lou, we got you off the hook with errands.
Actually, I don't know what the details about this, but for me, like, it's really just to avoid distraction while driving, cell phones, taking phone calls, text messages, things like that.
Thank you.
Dr. Wone, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I can jump in. I will say, my wife, when we had this meeting, I got home and we were talking, I said, I want to find something, in the house, basically, as far as safety is concerned, to share with my colleague on the AlexRenew board. So we had this, a thunderstorm, and the ring bell of the house, just we don't know what happened, and inside the house it just kept ringing. So I have the staircase were in the garage, but I was so lazy I wanted to pull a chair, and my wife just came in and she pulled it away. She said, looks like you have something to tell your colleagues not to do. Go get the chair, go get the staircase in the garage and come use it. Don't step on that chair and you're gonna fall in here. It's just gonna become an issue. So she told me, you're going to have to tell this to your colleagues in the next meeting. I say, okay, I will share it. So that's my story here.
So as a result of the briefing last month, we're all safer at home. It's good. It's good. Okay, moving right along to some unfinished business, the most important thing. Approval of the budget for fiscal 27. Carl, Dr. Kube?
We're gonna end up doing two motions here, one for the budget, one for the rate structure.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. In front of you it's a memo to approve, thanks, Kate, to approve and adopt the FY 2027 operating budget, as well as a memo and resolution to approve and adopt AlexRenew's rate structure that updates how base charge is determined. The FY 27 operating and capital budget totals $227.2 million. Capital budget accounts for approximately 71%, or $162.2 million, which will be used to complete the AlexRenew project, jumpstart the Phase Forward project, and keep improving on other capital infrastructures in and around AlexRenew. Operating budget accounts for approximately 19% of the total budget, and for day-to-day operating expenses, including personnel costs. The remaining 10%, or approximately $21 million, accounts for debt service to pay for our outstanding loan. The new base charge methodology will align better with the volume of wastewater each customer contributes towards the sewer system. Public hearing was held on Saturday, May 16th at 9:30 a.m. We received no comments were received prior to the budget. However, a comment or two was received and addressed during the public hearing. The motion now is for the board to approve and adopt the FY 2027 operating and capital budget, as well as approve and adopt the resolution for the effort.
Any discussion from the board, although we have been briefed 4 times on this. I think we're well informed. There's no discussion. I think, Mr. Jenks, you should make the motion.
I would move that we approve the 27 operating and capital budget, and we know the kinds of things driving our numbers are, the environment, it's biosolids, as we'll talk later about flooding risks, about cybersecurity. They're all kind of existential pressures on us and things we have to worry about in the long term. So they're needed in the capital budget is 80% cash, very little borrowing for $1 billion over the next 10 years. So this is a very well put together budget and very solid.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Naturally, following on that is a motion regarding the rates and rate structure for fiscal 27. Also, Mr. Jenks.
I'd move that we adopt the CAD resolution authorizing a change in the rate structure. Our base charge is determined and approved. We've also reflected in our rates, rules, and regulations.
Is there a second?
Second.
Dr. Wone,
It was.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Well done. This was a very smooth and very, I think, very important budget year. Entirely new rate structure is now in place. So it's a big step forward. I encourage all board members, I do it every year, to keep a copy of your bill in your briefcase or in your folder, however you want to carry it, just to see what our customers see. And I did the calculation on mine. I'm a 4,000 gallon a month person. I'm going to see a 2.4% increase on July 1st. That's including the city fee. It's well below the rate of inflation. Good. Good. Moving right along to new business. Update on AlexRenew commissioning.
Got a bit of a show tonight. Mr. Payne is supporting our commissioning t-shirts, front and back. We designed them. Why don't you show us the back of the t-shirt? Mr. Payne.
Yeah, there you go.
We designed these after like a concert, from like the 90s. So all the key dates on the back of the t-shirts, and our slogan for the event July 1st is all systems flow.
All systems flow.
So Alex team did a really good job on these. This just came in today as a proof, so we asked Ryan to squeeze into it for, even though it might not be his size, so. But
That's a very.
he's being a good sport.
It's a cool shirt. It's a
So
cool shirt.
we'll make sure we get these to the board, city and Fairfax before the event, and we'll have them available at the event for attendees as well, so.
To keep. What are the dates on the back, the milestones in the
Come on,
project?
Ryan.
Can you mom?
Well, it starts with CSO legislation, long-term control plan
This is the
approval.
runway. This is the runway.
Yeah.
Wastewater project completed the plan. Hazel, groundbreaking Hazel completes her drive, pump station's operational, and pumping station is live, we're ready for flow. So that's about where we are right now.
It's about where we are. Wow.
So all systems flow. Thank you, Ryan, for being a good sport.
You're welcome.
We're going to send a t-shirt to Senator Stewart. He had probably the first date on this t-shirt. Listen.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, thank you. It's my privilege to be here today talking about band shirts and ribbon cuttings and all the good things that have been happening here the past month. So as you can see, the building is coming together. By the title slide, we've got all three of the major volumes of the pumping station that have been assembled, and we're working towards finishing everything up here on site. So I'll step you through where we are today. Back to our generalized timeline, you can see, if you can barely discern a little bit of white space between our current progress today and system operational by July 1st, 2026. That represents the next 10 days or so of work for us. Really, we're ready to go. All systems flow, all of our pumping systems are ready to go. And I'll walk you through exactly where each of those pumping systems are and what we've done over the last month and a half. Once we finish the removal of bulkheads and we bring the system online by the end of next week, Friday, 26th is the date by which we will basically have pulled the bulkheads at outfall 1. We'll introduce flow to the system and we'll be operational at that point. there'll still be a period of time following system operational until we get to substantially complete. That'll be the time to finish up some of the remaining work in the building. I'll walk you through some of what will be outstanding after July 1st. And then after that system substantial completion period, we'll enter the 1-year service agreement. At the end of that service agreement year, that'll be also the end of our 1-year warranty period. We'll do an inspection, and that'll be the official handover to AlexRenew in terms of operation, full operation. So that's the next year or so ahead of us, but right now we're still very much focused on the next 10 days. Final countdown. 15 days, 5 hours, a few minutes until we hit our July 1st date. As you can see through our checklist, there's a lot of green check boxes here. We have introduced flow to the tunnel. We have tested pump functionality for each of the systems. We have cut open all the major connections we need to connect the system hydraulically into the plant. We've run through performance testing, operational demonstrations. We're now at the point of just simply needing to remove the bulkheads, the gates that are holding back flow at the outfalls to allow it into the system. The other final piece that we're working on is some of the system testing here in the screening shaft to make sure all of that solids management and screening facilities are ready to go by the time we get flows coming in. In our tunnel dewatering pumping station, the lowest of our pumping stations down at the bottom, since we met last, we have completed all of the performance testing for the pumps. We have tested them all under automatic control, so we run them through our software to make sure that we can control them remotely. And we've run through a mock storm event. So we completely filled the tunnel and then completely emptied it to run the entire system from a full state down to an empty state. We did that twice, and it performed beautifully. So this system is ready for flow. We are ready to go in the tunnel dewatering pumping station, both with our tunnel dewatering pumps and our solids handling pumps. So there's no further work here until we look at this. In the wet weather pumping station, we've performed performance testing, tested everything under automatic control, run through mock storm event, and essentially have commissioned all the ancillary systems we need to be able to operate this system. The one thing that we still can't quite do with the wet weather system is fully simulate a wet weather event. So unlike the tunnel where you can fill the whole funnel up, with our wet weather pumping station, we can't exactly simulate a wet weather event from the host run interceptor. So we can only do these tests with the flow we have inside of our HDL control structure. And so there's still be a little bit more testing there as we work out the system once it's exposed to live flows.
Mr. Payne, my understanding is we also don't have an elevator access to those pumping stations, as you said, Riley.
Yes. We do not yet have an elevator. We had a bit of a hiccup with the manufacturer who typical elevator system in an emergency condition. For example, if we pulled a fire alarm, an elevator is going to go down to the ground floor. In our case, we're an inverted building. If an alarm is pulled, that elevator needs to stay where it is and not go and return to the ground zero floor, which would strand people down underground and force them to climb out on steps. The manufacturer really needed to work through all the details of that, and they needed a letter from the city confirming that this is in fact the way we wanted the system designed, which we got, but we will not yet have that elevator until November. So we'll see. It's being fabricated now. But in the meantime, we're all getting our steps in. It's great. In the screening shaft, the overhead screen rake and clamshell tools have all been installed. The gantry crane itself, which holds those, has been tested, load tested, and certified for its use. And communications between that system, that deep breaker system, which will clean the screen, have been established with the control room. So now we just need to run through system testing here and make sure we're ready to go. I've got a small video of that breaker or that rake descending down the guides in the screen shaft.
Okay.
Great.
It's almost as exciting as one
Oh.
digesters or pipes that he's welding in the biosolids project.
Well, there was at least, Mr. Carberry had commentary that we shut off.
Smart,
We did it.
smart.
Nothing offensive.
So like I said, the only thing that stands between us today and being live is the removal of the bulkheads, the temporary bulkheads that are installed at our outfall site. That work to commission those diversion structures for service at the outfalls has begun. This is a photograph from Pendleton Street, which is currently closed until the 26th, while crews go in, remove bulkheads, install the final orifice plates, load some of the filter media into the odor control system, and double check all the communications and make sure that we have communication back here to AlexRenew from the sensors that monitor the outfalls. So remaining work really is to pull these bulkheads and go live.
Dr. Juan is the question.
Yeah, I just wanted clarification. You said the only remaining bulkhead are the one on the outfall side. How about on the diversion structure side?
Thank you, Dr. Ron. Yeah, the outfalls are actually open currently. So the flap gates at the outfalls are open and flow is able to pass through our structures already. The tunnel system side doesn't have a bulkhead, so flow can go out of the tunnel system if we were to have an overflow event from the tunnel. The diversion structures themselves are the only structures that have temporary bulkheads right now. So that's what's separating the live flow from the tunnel system.
Okay.
Does that make sense? To answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Back here at the plant, the building is really coming together. Like you saw on the title slide, we're actually working on installing the landscaping, pavers. The green roof is being installed now. Interior finishes have started. There's drywalls. Drywall is starting to go in. There's doors that have been installed. And all the critical equipment necessary to meet the July 1st deadline and operate the system is tested and is ready to go. So we have all the major elements we need to run the system, and the remainder of the work here is just getting the building buttoned up over the next several months to get the substantial completion. So key takeaways for where we are today. Mock storm testing is complete for the tunnel dewatering and the wet weather pumping systems. These pumping systems are ready for flow. Bulkheads will be pulled in the next 10 days, and the remaining work on the building is progressing steadily. We'll be ready for an open house event here on July 1st, or a ribbon cutting event. Excited to welcome everybody out there, and very excited for the moment that we get to announce that we are live.
Just a question about the dewatering. When you filled the tunnel up and dewatered it, how long did that take and how did that compare with your calculations?
Sure. It took about 14 hours, which is just about what we expected. We can dewater it faster if we run multiple pumps. And in some cases, we for the second test, we did do that. We ran a couple of pumps at the same time just to speed things up through the tunnel emptying phase. But generally speaking, it went about as expected. So we were able to discharge it 20 MGD and meet the intent of the permit.
Now, what are the constraints if, say, we have extreme weather and the tunnel is just filling up and filling up and filling up? The constraint is how fast we can pump it out, or is the constraint here at the plant how much we can handle?
Yeah, well, I suppose it's twofold. The pumps have a firm pumping capacity that's defined. So 20 MGD for the big pumps, 5 MGD for the little ones. We're going to continue pumping until the plant gets to 60 MGD of flow. 60 MGD of flow. If we are pumping an extra 20, we're now at 80 MGD total going over to the plant. And at that point, we've hit our limit on our ability to manage flow that's coming in while it's still raining. The tunnel will essentially go from a pumping mode to just a storage mode. Pumps will shut off, tunnel system fills up, we wait for the plant to have the capacity again, and then an operator will give it the signal to go. So there's communication will occur with the plant. Hey, do we have the ability to take an extra 20 MGD of flow from our tunnel dewatering pumps? And then we can send it to the plant. Now, if we have a really big rainstorm and that continues to accept flow into the tunnel, and we still don't have the capacity here at the plant to empty the tunnel, then obviously the system can overflow. It'll overflow at Pendleton Street. Thank you. Sure.
Dr. Juan?
Yeah, the question I just have, is do you have your permit? I don't know who asked, how many hours you have to empty the tunnel. Is there any, requirement there in your permit to tell you should not be exceeding X number of hours without emptying the tunnel?
Dr. Wong, no, we do not have a permit on the time. I understand that is it's how the system.
We're going to be seeking a permit on the time. Right now it says 20 MG. We must water at a rate of 20 MGD. That's what's in the operating plan, Dr. Wong, but we're going to change that to water the tunnel within 24 hours,
Okay, thank you.
which is more standard.
Yeah.
Any questions from the board? An incredible accomplishment. Incredible. Glad the dates are on the back of the t-shirt because it's been a long journey.
It's been a long journey.
It's been a long journey. Hats off to everybody who's been part of this. This is incredible.
Yeah, the team's been working tremendously hard here the last several weeks to get us over the finish line. So it's been fun. It's been excellent.
And the press coverage has been very positive, very good. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank the entire team, of course.
Make sure you put that t-shirt downstairs.
I will. Yeah, I'll put it back there. Who actually designed the t-shirt?
The outreach team actually took fans, you all know the Pixies. They took an old Pixies t-shirt and kind of used that as inspiration. But our outreach team, mostly Don.
The creativity of this organization is astounding. It's astounding. Wow. Okay, next topic, very important. We talked about it last meeting, compensation policy.
Opens tab 7. So, Mr. Chair, as you said, last month, Ms. Callahan presented the results of the 2026 compensation study. And during her presentation, she noted that we have been doing it every 2 years, full comprehensive study. And what we found with this last one was that in certain areas, salaries had changed quite a bit. So the proposal is now moving forward to have the full study every 2 years and an abbreviated study in that alternate year. So the main purpose of the policy revisions are to add that 2-tier cycle. But while I was in there, and I think this is the last policy that is BC or Carl that we haven't revised. So we wanted to bring it up to our current standards by adding a policy statement, a policy purpose. You'll see on page 1 of the red line, you'll see the compensation objectives. We just defined those key terms. And then we've added in on page 2, the external competitiveness with the 2-year plan. And then we made some other minor housekeeping revisions, including a version history. So with that, staff recommends adopting this revised policy.
By the way, I thought the statement of objectives was very well done. And it provides the framework for the policy. Very well done. Any questions from the board? So to summarize the policy, we do a survey every 2 years. And we aim to be 90 to 110% around that midpoint. That's the whole policy. It's clear. Governance Committee, you should make the motion.
With the adoption of the revised policy.
Is there a second?
Conversation.
Second.
All in favor?
I,
Did we get Dr. Wong's vote?
Yes, said I.
That was a yes. Good, good. Okay, moving right along. Flood insurance program.
While the team gets up, I just maybe wanted to mention, this is our third time coming to the board with the outcomes of our climate assessment. Given that we are going through a budget cycle, we wanted to give the board a little more background on how we came up with our insurance program. One, to manage risk for the organization, and two, to make sure we have adequate flood coverage to support the technical decisions that our team here is going to present tonight. I found this process interesting.
Yeah.
I think our own insurance team found this process interesting in identifying the real risk of flooding. And without stealing the details of the presentation, turn it over to Mallory to walk through slides.
Yeah, thank you so much, everybody, for having us here tonight to speak with you. I'm Mallory Orm. I'm our Sustainability and Resilience Manager. And today I'm joined by a couple of technical experts. And you're primarily going to be hearing from them today. I'll be jumping in here and there, but we have Ms. Paula Antina with us. She's a wastewater technologist with Jacobs, who's been supporting AlexRenew for many years. And we have Mr. Dan Knice with us as well, our insurance advisor with us. So we will go ahead and jump right in. So just as a very brief overview of our climate analysis the last couple of years and our approach to resilience. I've presented to you a few times on this topic, so I will keep this short. But the approach was to really look first at exposure. So which of our assets and staff were exposed to climate hazards? We then evaluated vulnerability of those exposed assets by considering sensitivity and adaptive capacity. Paul is going to speak more to that in a couple of slides. And then for those assets that qualified as vulnerable, we quantified risk by considering how likely that risk was to occur, how severe would the impact be on our operations, and lastly, we identified adaptation strategies and costs to reduce our risks. So this presentation is really going to focus primarily on those last two steps of evaluating risk and then developing solutions to address and to mitigate those risks. So I'll turn it now to Paula to walk us through the climate analysis.
Thank you, Mallory. So as you recall from this, oh, gotcha. Oh, okay. If you recall from the previous presentation that we did, so we did a study where we looked at different flood scenarios, different, the 100-year, the 500-year flood. We looked at riverine, coastal, and interior flooding, and we also looked at the impact of climate change, looking into the future for, what the flood would look like at the facility. For insurance purposes, though, we're looking at the current 100-year floodplain, and for insurance purposes, you use FEMA, which is obviously current. They don't look ahead to with climate change or everything. They just look at the current. And then for us, Riverine was the one that was the worst of all the different models that we did. So this graphic here kind of shows the extent of the flooding around the plant. So the exercise that we did was, okay, if this event were to occur, what would be the impact to the plant, and what would be the assets that would be exposed that would need to be insured against that event. So what we had done previously was to kind of superimpose the entry points. So the intuitively, right, the water goes up. Some of your buildings might be a foot, let's say a foot, water levels about a foot. But where are those doorways, right? How is that water getting into that building? So that's kind of what we looked at. And based on this scenario, what we see is that the bulk of the flooding is going to occur into the gallery. So those are the red diamonds that you see. Those are the doorways that will be exposed to floodwaters coming into the facility. And because we have all the low-lying, below-ground galleries that are all interconnected, in theory, that is all at risk. Now, in reality, is the whole gallery system going to fill up with water? It's going to depend on many different things, but it's all potentially exposed. And some of it also depending on which of these doorways gets breached first, et cetera, et cetera. But basically, based on this, we looked at what would be the cost of the value of the assets that would be exposed to this risk. So that's what you want to basically insure. So that was kind of the exercise that we were going through. So this is one example. Building N, which is the UV building, is one of the facilities that is exposed. So what we see here is we have about somewhere between 8 to 9 inches of water potentially, in the outside of the building, above the ground level. So it will come into the building. We also see there on the left, there's a gallery entry point. That doorway leads down into the gallery. So if you were to have water there, you could also have water, kind of coming down the steps and into the gallery areas.
Before we move off that picture, what would we do if that happened tomorrow? What would we do? I'll let anybody answer the question. Let's say we had the skies opened up and we got all that rain, 100-year storm, 200-year storm. Sandbag around those doors? Right.
Yeah.
Call Dan and tell him we're putting a claim in a couple weeks.
Put the sandbags first.
And then call Dan. But yeah, right now, I guess, we did a climate assessment to look into the future, but we're also looking at current risks, right? So how do we protect ourselves right now today? That's the risk that we're dealing with, right? We're not insured. I don't want to steal the presentation. We feel like we're not adequately insured for something like this to happen at the plant, and we don't yet have our resiliency projects in place.
Exactly.
Long term, if we have, in a couple of years, we'll either have some sort of a barrier in front of the door, or we're going to build a wall around that side of the plant, things like that. But today, it's sandbags and insurance.
Exactly. And going to the point of insurance, then what is, you need to have a dollar value of how much you're going to insure, so you know what your premium is going to be. So that's the exercise. What is that dollar value? And so previously, Dr. Warren.
Yeah, I am sure you guys do such a great job. I am sure probably you touch into it, but I just don't remember. Why are we using just the current 100-year flood when we know it is not really reasonable based on what we are seeing right now on the climate front?
I think, Dr. Wong, we're not using the FEMA flood maps. I think we're using the Jacobs Riverine flood that we see as the current 100-year flood. And then our future designs, our upcoming designs that we'll implement as part of phase 4 and some other plant improvements, they'll be using a future flood event that we previously presented on as part of the climate change assessment. So designing the resiliency efforts around those storms, The current 100-year flood was just this interim phase while we try and shore up our resiliency plan to get something built in the field. And this is a stopgap, is to rely on some insurance in the event that we do have a storm event like this now. So future designs will not be based on the current storm event. They'll be based on a conglomerate of future inland flooding, riverine flooding, tidal flooding doesn't really affect us, but it would be based on those future scenarios.
Thank you.
Just to add to that, insurance is based on flooding, and so that's why for this exercise, we really do insurance.
I think a key distinction, though, is that if you had the 500-year flood, the insurance would still respond. It's not based on the idea that it only covers a 100-year flood. It covers any flood that causes this damage.
Can we drill down on that just a little? The 4-foot water level, is that purely from rain, or is that the king tide as well?
Yeah, that's coastal.
Okay.
That's riverine. So that's the impact of, right? It's riverine. Is the water coming down the river?
Plus tidal effect at the same, or no?
No, that would be coastal.
Yeah, so when we presented before, we showed that the coastal didn't have this. The most impactful storm for us is flow down Cameron Run and flow down Post Run for the plant. The coastal does not have the same impact as riverine. It's not even, wasn't even the same.
Yeah, I do worry when they happen together.
The boundary condition of the river being high.
Yeah.
So
I sail on the river and the tides are a lot more extreme than they used to be. Okay. This is great. I mean, this is what we have to worry about.
Yeah. Okay, so part of the exercise was trying to figure out, so we had some numbers from, I guess, the previous insurance where they had looked at the total value of all your assets at the plant, including all your buildings and the contents of all your buildings. But we wanted to get a little bit more granular on, based on what is actually exposed, what is the value of those assets that are exposed as opposed to just insuring the whole building. So in this example, in building N, for example, all the HVAC equipment, all the fans, all that is actually up in a mezzanine level, and that's not actually exposed. So it doesn't really need to be part of the assets that get insured. So the exercise involved just looking at what equipment is installed where, because we have all that information from our study. We have all the assets, what elevation is installed at. So we were able to use that information to then establish which are the assets that are truly at risk and what is the cost of those assets. So in this case, for example, looking at when we subtract the assets that are not exposed to flooding, there might be some assets that are exposed to flooding, but maybe they're not sensitive. Things like, doors or cabinets that is not really worth insuring. You want to insure like your expensive assets, your pumps, your equipment. So that came out with a value to be insured for this building of about 6.3 million compared to the numbers that we had before, which were 14.3 for the whole building and 7.4 for the contents. And of course, the 14.3 includes the roof and the walls and things that might not necessarily get damaged.
For these assets that are impacted by the flooding, are you looking at the depreciated value of those assets or the actual value it would take to replace those assets? No.
We used the cost that had been established by the insurance company before.
So it would have been the asset value that we put into our Versa policy when building N was constructed and what it's insured for.
Okay.
So it would have been the actual installed cost.
So when we rolled up all the numbers for all the galleries and then for building N, the total value of all the assets came out to about $59.5 million.
So maybe Paul, go back the slides, but there's an extensive, this is a very high summary of a very extensive spreadsheet where Paul and her team went through building by building and picked apart the actual building, its contents, and then correlated a cost for the assets at risk. That was just one example, but that was then repeated for the buildings that are shown here in this map as well as the galleries. So part of this was we knew going into the next phase of this presentation that if that total is unreasonable, we're going to come back with a massive premium. So I think we looked at our initial value from Versa, was 1.1 billion. There's no way that a flood's going to impact all $1.1 billion of our assets. So we really had to go back to the drawing board and carve out what was really at risk currently while we do put in our resiliency plan. That's why we went through this exercise, because we knew the premium would be through the roof.
Is that another reason to use what the original investment value was rather than the replacement value for insurance? Because if we use replacement value, then the number I assume would be much higher.
Correct. It would go higher. Correct. And I think the other thing we were thinking too, when we were looking at making sure whatever value that's in our Versa policy, Virginia Risk Sharing Association policy, matched our new policy. We want to make sure those numbers matched as well.
And that's in basis.
They're all founded on the same number. So that those numbers, that we started with were from our Virginia Risk Sharing Association policy. We're carrying those over now into our new policy that Dan's talked about.
Well, and I think maybe, Justin, if I could, a simple way to kind of say it is that the values are not depreciated, but they're not inflated either, okay? So if they were put in 24, they haven't been inflated to 26, but they're not depreciated. So that brings us to insurance. And I think, first of all, I would say that I think AlexRenew and the team have done a really good job of thinking about risk mitigation and obviously then of measuring kind of the assets at risk, but there's still a need for a financial backstop. So AlexRenew for many years now has participated in a group called Virginia Risk Sharing Association, Versa. Versa is a self-governed insurance pool for governmental entities in the Commonwealth. So focused only on the Commonwealth, self-run. They do buy reinsurance, but they also self-fund a lot of their risk. They have 473 members. They happen to have 36 other water and wastewater authorities. It doesn't mean they don't have other water and wastewater risk, because some of those come with the municipality or whatever group, but they have those. They provide a basket full of insurances to their members, including AlexRenew. So you buy your liability insurance from them, your workers' compensation from them, you buy your property insurance from them, and you actually will come to it in a minute, you buy some modicum of flood insurance from them. Then again, they've been very cost effective. The one advantage you get with them is it's quite inexpensive to buy this basket of insurance all in one place. Now, there are some limitations that come with that, though, and we'll talk a little bit about that. So what you have today through them is you have your property insurance with them, and included in that property insurance is $100 million of flood insurance, which sounds like good news when you look at 59.5 million. You're like, we got 100 million. The downside of that is twofold. One is it only applies to risk within FEMA zones B, C, and X, which is most of your risk, but not all of your risk. So that means you have some potential exposure to non-insured risk, if you will, that isn't insured by Versa. And maybe the second piece I think is even more important, that you've got a pool-wide aggregate, meaning that they provide $100 million of flood insurance to AlexRenew, except that there's $100 million aggregate shared among all of their members. And I think we're going to talk in a minute about the risk that comes with that. So good news is you've got insurance. The bad news is you might not be able to collect under it. That's what led to the second part of the exercise that Mallory and Paul have talked about, but Justin and the rest of the team, Wendy and others, engaged us to work on, which is how do we protect against that? The fact that we may have what we think is insurance, but it isn't. It's uncollectible. So we put in place this other policy that we'll talk about. Just want to make sure, does that all make sense though? So I think where we are. Am I doing all of these? Yes, right. So these are the insured entities. If you look at the detail in the map, the number of entities that are exposed, I guess that's to Potomac River and Chesapeake Bay flooding, is pretty significant. So back to this issue of what is the risk of not collecting, we identified it, and our experts who do flood insurance, I'm kind of more of a generalist, but the experts have identified it as quite high because there are literally dozens of entities exposed to the same risk that you're exposed to, with hundreds of millions of dollars of assets at risk. So how far is 100 million going to go? That's the bottom line. Okay. So that's kind of the exposure that they have. Yeah, you were gonna.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna jump in on this one. So keeping that last map in mind, we started considering potential impacts of a major regional flood event and what that might mean in this area. So unlike localized flooding, a regional event is gonna trigger simultaneous claims across multiple jurisdictions all at once. And we thought about Hurricane Helene in 2024 as a recent example. You know, that resulted in multiple states in crisis. It resulted in widespread infrastructure damage, heavily impacted utilities across the board, and it amounted to about 17.5 billion estimated insurance claims, with several billion more in uninsured damage. So emergency federal funding responded to some of the impacts to utilities, but otherwise many of these costs were passed along to ratepayers as storm recovery riders. So you can imagine if we were to experience a similar event in this region and in our watershed, that shared 100 million Versa pool isn't going to go very far at all. So that's what pushed us to consider what are our options for absorbing that level of shock. So back to you, Dan.
Yep, thank you.
Before we move on though, I share your concern about Versa in the event of a huge storm. In the past, has Versa been unable to pay all their claims?
They have not had this situation occur yet. We've asked that question. They haven't had it occur. But they're very clear that it's $100 million limit shared by all members. But in the next sentence, they'll say it's never occurred. You know,
That's what they said before the housing crisis too, right?
No,
I mean,
right, exactly right. So, and I think that's what you've got to plan against as leaders of this organization, and you're the team here has to plan against.
How long has the cap been at 100 million? Is this a recent thing? Is it?
I've not been involved for very many years now, but in the years I've been involved, it's 100 million. It's been that. And I think it's kind of a risk allocation issue and how much money they want to spend. Again, I would go back to, on the plus side, you're getting very inexpensive insurance from Versa. The flood is almost, in their minds, it's almost a throw-in. Okay, you may not think that, but that's how they view it almost. It's a throw-in. That what you're buying from them is property insurance. And property insurance may or may not include flood. In their case, they've added flood to it, but they're really pricing it as if you're going to have a fire or some other calamity as well. So you go what you pay for, I guess, in that case.
Question, Victoria, maybe this is the right point to ask it. How do you define flood insurance? The chair was getting to the issue, and I've been through hurricanes and having insurance agents sit there and say, well, that was wind, that was rain, it wasn't. Yours is caused by wind,
rising water, basically.
Hurricane, and our high floods are when they come from the river, are when you have a full moon and the wind is coming from Prince George's County. And that's when we've had in the city the worst damage.
Those that qualify as the definition of flood. It's basically rising water. I could get you.
So regardless of how it gets on the ground,
right,
is if it rises up and causes a problem.
Right.
So that we won't end up with these picky.
But you hit it right, Mark, right on Mr. Jinks, right on the head, that the issue is, what if you have that rainfall and riverine flooding and the wind driving the Chesapeake Bay and the Potomac water up the river all at the same time at high tide? That is exactly the scenario that the insurance underwriters have identified that they're concerned about. They call it a compound flood event, where you've got multiple things happening at once. And that's exactly what they're worried about, that's where we're headed, they think, from an environmental standpoint and the volatility of weather standpoint. So that's kind of what drives it. But that would be covered.
Yeah, so it's basically hanging this on the ground that rises.
Yes.
Regardless of where it came from.
Yeah, if it runs through the ceiling and damages the walls, that's not a flood. If it comes from the bottom and comes up, and again, our walls aren't covered in this scenario, but if they were, that's what you would cover. So what are your options for dealing with this? And I think, again, the team did a good job of looking at this in terms of the options. Well, one is to self-insure the risk. Okay, we've got some insurance. Let's take our chances. Let's self-insure it. I think that if we identify, and the team identified a couple of real risks with that, one is you wouldn't have the sufficient funds available immediately to repair any damage. And secondly, because of the amount of capital outlay it would require, you'd have to raise rates pretty dramatically to fund that. So that has, again, it's an option, but it did not seem to be a desirable option. Flood insurance did seem to be a desirable option. It covers the gaps. It's in a sense, in the insurance trade, they call it DIC, DIL. DIC is difference in conditions and difference in limits. So if you didn't, for example, the Versa policy is exhausted, now our policy kicks in, right? And if we have an issue that it's not covered under the Versa policy, our policy kicks in. So it covers gaps in the Versa policy. It provides a known premium. Every year you buy the insurance with a known premium. We'll talk about that in a minute. So you can budget for it in your annual budget. And it does cover the assets at most risk. Paul and the team, I think, did a really good job of narrowing that 1.1 billion down to 59.5 million of high risk, high value assets. The negative is, of course, you have to pay the insurance premium every year, right? You've added a cost. The third option is emergency funding. I think it's fair to say that there is the potential to get some emergency funding, no doubt. There is the potential. It's difficult though. Typically, you need a presidential declaration of a disaster area to make that happen, or an administration decision. It may require local contributions. Some of the, looking back at some of the more recent history, it's been a 75-25 split. Federal money 75, local money 25, and you've got to come up with the 25. And then it's subject to case-by-case decision making. But there is some potential recovery, but it's very difficult to quantify its availability and the magnitude of that recovery. So those were kind of the options that we looked at. And that ended up creating a decision to pursue what we would call commercial flood insurance. So we went into the commercial market, and this is, it looks like a jigsaw puzzle because it is. That's what it takes to put together this kind of program. Most insurers nowadays for these kinds of risks don't want to take 100% of the risk. You can't go to AIG or CNA or Chubb and say, write me a $59.5 million flood policy. They go, no. I'll write you 20% of the first 10 million of that flood policy. And then somebody else will write 80% of it. And then somebody else will write the next layer and the next layer. So we do two different things. We layer it and we syndicate it. So think about like a syndicated loan. We literally syndicate it. So in this case, we have a $10 million primary, what you would call primary policy. It's got a $500,000 deductible, although again, if Versa pays, that would pay the deductible. And 80% of the first risk, the first 10 million of risk, so 8 million out of 10 is in the London Lloyd's market. Okay, so we went to Lloyd's of London. That's where you have to get a lot of this coverage. The other 20% is actually written by Berkshire Hathaway. So Warren Buffett's insurance company. You've heard probably he owns Geico and some others, but he also owns a company called Berkshire Hathaway Insurance. And they write high risk, they bet on high risk, I would argue, high risk lines of insurance. So they write the other 20%. The next layer is a group called Rethought. Rethought is actually what they call an underwriting manager. Again, they work through London. So they provide 80% of the next layer, which was 129,000. You can see the price goes down as you go up because the insurers have drawn the conclusion that in their own event, and they do very high level sophisticated modeling, most of which they won't share with you or us because it's proprietary to them. But they figured out that top layer where Markel, which is a Richmond-based or outside of Richmond, Glen Allen-based insurance company, and Kinsale, which is also happens to be done in that area, they're going to write the top 19.5 million, excess of 40 million for 104,000. So the total annual premium is 888,000. It's a big number, but if you look at it against a $59.95 million policy, if you have a loss, you'll collect, if you had a $59.5 million loss, you'll collect $59.5 million. So that's kind of the trade-off. So again, it's a bit of a jigsaw puzzle. It took quite a bit of work by our team. Again, we've got a team of experts that do flood insurance full time. Again, I dabble in all of these insurances. They do it full time. They put together the jigsaw puzzle to get the best pricing and the best continuity of coverage over time from these insurers. And again, these are annual policies. So this policy is in effect until July 1, 2027. It would be in effect.
Question, why not a bigger deductible? I mean, we've got
Good
cash
question.
reserves, we've got.
Valid question. When we went to the insurance market, that's why, this is keeping people like me in business. They thought the insurance market, you wouldn't need insurance brokers and advisors because you do this all online and you trade via kind of exchange, if you will. But the reality is it's not a pure market. And in this case, it's not pure in the sense of we went out and came back to Justin and the team and said, why don't we try a $2 million deductible? And the insurer said, you know what? We're not going to lower the price a bit if you take a $2 million deductible because first of all, we think the loss is more catastrophic than that. And secondly, our capital is worth more money than that. We're not going to lower the price anything below what we have already. So it was interesting. And that happens. This happens on other lines of coverage too, by the way, where it's not always easy to mathematically determine where that is. You go to the market and let the market tell you where it is, if you will. I mean, we went to, several dozen insurers to get to these. But they said, we're not going to give you any more credit for that. We won't lower the price if you do that. Then why take the higher deductible, right? At that point, it's not worth it. But that's a great question, though, because we had the same thought. We literally presented the first time and came back and said, why don't we look at a higher deductible? We didn't get it.
Dr. Juan has a question.
All right.
Dr. Juan?
Yeah, can you just help me out here? Because you said Versa had a cap of 100 million. And then if all those entities at the same time file claim, the money will not be there. But at the same time, we're saying we're trying just to ensure the gaps that cover things, but we don't think we're going to get with Versa. So if that scenario happens, so now what?
The scenario of Versa not paying the claim.
Not having money because,
If they don't pay the claim, you have 59.5 million of coverage available. If they paid part of the claim, let's say there was a $59.5 million loss and they had $1 million to give to you, you would get $1 million from them and 58.5 from these insurers in that scenario. But the assumption these insurers made when we went to the market again, the market kind of drives it, is that their assumption is we can't count on Versa to have anything available or anything of any magnitude available because it spreads so widely as they look at it. Questions? So what's the claim process? If there's a flood event, the first claim, if you will, gets filed with the Versa program. Now remember, it has to be within zone X in your case in order to be covered. If it's in AE, it's not covered anyway. So we'll file the claim. You would file the claim with Versa. At the same time, though, you're going to file the claim with the commercial insurers. You never delay. One of our cardinal rules is don't delay filing the claim. There is no penalty to filing the commercial world. I don't know about your homeowners, but in the commercial world, there's no penalty to file a claim that ends up in no payment. There is a penalty if you delay filing the claim and they come back later and say you didn't file it in a timely manner, therefore we're not going to pay it. So you would file with both. If Versa pays and it's in zone X, that we're done and they have enough money. If not, then it goes to the secondary flood market and then you get paid as a reimbursement through the policy. And then finally, what were some lessons we learned? One of the things we learned from them is first of all, the insurers did very detailed modeling. I mean, they came back with some pretty specific questions that the team had to answer. I think the second thing we learned that is no surprise to all of you is the flood risk is real and rising. There's no doubt that that's the perspective of the insurance market. The flood events are happening more frequently, but more importantly, there's a phenomenon they're calling the frequency of severity. Which if you think about that for a second, the frequency of severity, what they're saying is we used to have severe floods, what do they do once in a while, but what we're seeing now is a higher frequency of very severe claims or incidents, if you will, arising out of that. And then finally, I think was the issue of the compounding flood events, this idea that again, the underwriters were very very concerned about this compounding flood event, that you have a high tide, you have the wind, you have the rain, and you've already got a flooding river, a riverine, if you will, event, all happening at once. What happens then? And we've seen this. I mean, just, I do this kind of work for a lot of other entities around the country, including the Texas Department of Transportation. And we've had some major flood losses there in Houston that, all the people who live in Houston who I work with tell me never happened 20 years ago, and now we're having them. So we just recently had one on a toll road down there where they lost several weeks of toll revenue because the flooding was so bad. That was millions of dollars toward their bond payments they had to pay up, so. And then I think this is you, right?
Take over. So I'm just gonna bring us home here. Ultimately, this all ties back to our overall approach to risk that I mentioned at the top of the presentation. Our goal is to ensure risk is managed and maintained at an acceptable level. We're always going to have some degree of risk because we're in the business of critical infrastructure, but the goal is making sure we're addressing risk wherever it makes sense to do so. Part of that is by evaluating our flood insurance coverage and adapting when we see those potential gaps. Part of that is looking at those highest risk areas and considering mitigations like those flood barriers and elevation of equipment and so on. Another part which you heard me present on back in November is designing resilience into our capital improvement projects so that new investments don't continuously require these protective add-ons because we're already building to protect against future flood conditions. And related, we're planning for future climate scenarios. We're letting those future models and trends inform our planning so that we're prepared moving forward. Ultimately, all of those components create this comprehensive risk approach, which is the best practice that we're striving for. We're looking to drive that risk down to an acceptable level. And so I'll wrap there and welcome any further questions.
This was great and very, very timely. Ms. Arms, we've been talking about this in terms of dollars. Let's pivot and talk about this in terms of public health. Okay. The UV building. What happens in an extreme event, say high tide, terrible wind, rain and cats and dogs for months, weeks at a time? That building gets knocked out. Remember, AlexRenew is operational, right? So we're pumping water out of AlexRenew. What happens if that building is knocked out?
That was such a good example for us to use because it's such a critical part of our operations. So, that when we put together our whole risk register and looked at, our assets most at risk and those that would have highest consequence, that one's really pretty high up there. That would be a halt to, our ability to be effectively treating water it would be permit violations. It would be, a pretty significant disaster for us.
And not just during the storm event, but after, right? Because now your electrical equipment is, now, it's gonna be out of commission for a while. So just then, but then moving forward, and you're right, that's a critical piece of your treatment. Is your disinfection.
Yeah, we don't want to be sitting around waiting for FEMA to pay a claim, right?
Right.
Does it also mean that as we look at how we mitigate with physical improvements, that we start with those areas which will affect our environmental consequences of going offline the most?
Absolutely. It's definitely prioritizing those areas. But part of the challenge is that issue of all of our connected galleries. So even when we're, elevating those highest consequence areas, any gallery entrance could still open up the possibility to impact of those, high risk areas. So, it's quite a few areas that we would need to be putting in those physical mitigations to, really comprehensively protect for those high consequence areas.
if we lost UV, we miss our permit.
You can't disinfect.
Can't just.
We don't have hypo that we can start dumping in there.
That's
So
like
instead of being-
the worst of the worst cases.
Up there.
You have to, yeah, temporary hypo.
I mean, flood events remind me of the fiscal crisis of 2008. Insurers never realized that everything clusters together. And when the whole community fails, individual claims get overwhelmed, right? Same thing here. Flood doesn't just hit Alexandria. It hits a huge geographic area.
Yeah, Dr. Vaughn.
Yeah, this is just a general question here. Maybe Mr. Carl can comment on that. Are there any grant there that what we can pursue to help with this flooding? Because, you know, for Blue Plains, they building flood walls. And when they started, they went through our Office of Emergency Management, and they got some grant from FEMA for the design at least. And also they made a commitment, a portion of the construction. You're going to tell me things changed since then, but, you know, they still out there, you know, trying to collect that money. Are there any grant that what we can pursue in Virginia or something to help with this issue? Because this is a big issue for all these, you know, municipalities and counties that you guys talked about and that are, you know, part of this versus insurance pool.
There may be, I think that's something that's a little bit ahead of where we are now. We have plans to be looking at a flood wall with Jacobs. Jacobs is supporting us in that analysis. And so I think once we have sort of a better handle on, you know, these are going to be the most effective mitigations for us, that would be the time to, you know, go out and look for partnerships and grants or, you know, whatever support, you know, may be existing that we can find. I do think the climate around that has probably shifted in the last year or so. But I think it's an important part of that process once we've identified our most effective mitigations.
What are you seeing elsewhere, Jennifer?
That's good.
What are you all seeing elsewhere with FEMA grants? Or
So-
state brick grants, that kind of.
Brick grants have almost gone away, right? Because of the issue that we've talked about is that there's just not enough money to do grants when you've got all of this federal funding going to disaster relief. In terms of FEMA funding a flood wall, probably not. They wouldn't fund it for Richmond when they were getting their flood wall. For the downtown area, they said that they would not do it for the wastewater plant. But I think that there are some other types of grants and loans that we could definitely look at. And as Mallory mentioned, we are starting right now to evaluate the feasibility of a flood wall at the plant or a berm or something that would protect the plant versus doing these individual mitigation measures such as flood-proofing the doors and the windows and so forth. So just started that, and we'll have those results probably in 4 to 6 months.
Thank you.
Thank you. This was very informative and very timely. Do we need a motion here or just this was purely information?
No, I think, so this was included in this year's budget. We talked about it leading up to it. We felt it was important to share all of this information with the board to understand how we came up with the value and the due diligence that we did to be able to justify the insurance premium that we're carrying in our budget. And want you all to be informed that that is now coming.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Moving right along to biosolids thermal dryer procurement.
I got nothing for you, Kyle. It's just you.
Okay.
So my name is Kyle Chan. I'm an engineer here at AlexRenew. I'm also the assistant project manager on the biosolid safety project. Today we'll be talking about the procurement process we're going through right now to procure our biosolids thermal dryer for this project. Now you've seen the slide before. Just a quick refresher on the Phase 4 program. It's 4 major projects: biosolid diversification, headwork renewal, process optimization, and nutrient reduction. The dryer will be procured for the biosolids diversification project. A high-level overview of the biosolids diversification project. It's a $355 million project. It's looking to essentially upgrade our entire biosolids system. We're reinvesting in equipment that's recently entered its useful life and replacing it with equipment that is reliable, proven technologies. The dryer specifically will help to reduce the volume and diversify end uses for our biosolids. Overall, the project is supporting our sustainability goals, helping us build environmentally beneficial partnerships, and also ultimately helping us be able to adapt to future regulatory changes. Speaking specifically to how the dryer will help us diversify end uses. On the left, you see our current dewatered biosolids cake is produced in our anaerobic digesters and dewatered water centrifuges. The cake typically has about 75% moisture content, it roughly feels in a pit and looks like moist soil. And this is what we currently land apply. Thermal drying is a proven technology that uses heat and rotation, essentially a very hot tumble dryer, to dry and consolidate biosolids cake into dried pellets. These pellets have roughly 5% moisture content, a significant reduction. And going from cake to pellets reduces the volume of those solids by about 60%, which on its own reduces shipping costs and helps towards sustainability. And that also allows us to expand potential end use beyond just landfill or land application. Specifically, gives us the options of local waste energy production or regional facility, and also gives us flexibility to adapt to future technologies such as pyrolysis and gasification.
1 second. I think, after this year's General Assembly session too, we saw some other entities that you wouldn't think would be interested in biosolids kind of come out of the woodwork because the biosolids that Kyle just presented on do have a BTU value of about 6,500. So one of those entities are concrete manufacturers, cement manufacturers that are looking for more sustainable ways to create fuel for their facilities. And they're looking at biosolids as a potential fuel. However, they're requiring those biosolids to be completely dried, which are the biosolids on the right of our slide here. So it does also set us up for something that we don't know about yet that could be alternative fuel for another industry. But that's something that we've seen interest on already here in a few months after the General Assembly session.
So as a thermal dryer is a very large piece of equipment. We have a very constrained site. So we're proposing to retrofit our existing building C down in the southwest or southeast corner of the plant to accommodate the thermal drying facility. Currently, the building houses 5 gravity thickeners and a few warehouse areas and electrical rooms. We'll be retrofitting and repurposing it to house a drying facility on the northern half of the building and 3 gravity thickeners on the south half with the other required equipment in the mezzanine area, which I'll show in the next slide. This is a concept. On the left is a conceptual rendering of our new thermal drying facility. A little hard to see on the screen here, but the lowest tier there is where our 3 gravity thickeners are located. The tallest tier on the back is where the thermal dryer is. It's a very tall piece of equipment, so that's taking up the entire space. And then the tier in the middle houses our HVAC, electrical control room, our dewatering centrifuges, and our slug screens. which are all supporting this process. On the right is a first level conceptual layout of the drying facility. You can see our gravity thickeners on the south end, and then the two thermal dryers on the north end.
Just for scale, Kyle, I think it's important for the board to know this is a visible part of our plant.
Yeah.
So we are taking the time to think through this building architecturally, and you can see some AlexRenew superstructure details kind of built into this building. If you look behind the building, you can see it's the tallest building out. So this is hulking, sitting right next to 495. So to reduce the mass, the architectural team kind of put together, what are you calling this, a cake? What do you call that?
I think we were calling it a spice rack design.
Spice rack, okay. Spice rack design to try and keep like the gravity thickener area lower, kind of have this mezzanine level where we'll have some additional equipment, and then the thermal dryer with the stacks on the very north side of the building, and kind of give a little step back from the highway as opposed to this big monolith structure. So there is some thinking going in here with respect to the building to try and keep it light so it doesn't look like a prison.
So it's 5 stories tall, at least
80 feet.
8 stories tall.
About 80 feet.
So more of that later, but it'll be nice.
Wow.
All right. So the process we're going through right now is procuring a supplier for a thermal dryer. We issued an RFP in March of this year with the goal of, among other things, identifying viable vendors for thermal dryer system and making sure that the dryer we procure meets our needs. A key benefit of procuring this early rather than waiting for later in design is having the dryer manufacturer on board lets them work with our design team and make sure that we have specific details to the dryer included in the design. And the new building that we're designing will be space-proof for the exact piece of equipment that we're planning to put in there. This also gives us budget certainty in that the equipment pricing is acquired upfront while we're still very early in design. And because we have a direct contract with the manufacturer, we can support our operations by having a service agreement after we commission the dryer and keep the manufacturing coming back to support our team for a year or more after. So looking at options for pathways to procure the dryer, there are a few options: sole source, owner procured, or designer or CMAR procured. Sole source is what we initially looked at, but some market research determined that while there is one dominant player in the industry, there was a potential of other suppliers that could provide a dryer that would meet our needs. So with insufficient justification for sole source, we put this out as an RFP. The designer or CMAR procured option, there's a lot of difficulty in getting the terms and conditions for either a designer to marry with a supplier, or the CMAR to marry with the supplier and with AlexRenew, which also comes with a lot of some complications of contract assignments and changing of hands of the contract. We are currently pursuing the path of a owner procured thermal dryer, where AlexRenew procures a thermal dryer and maintains the contract directly with the vendor. This has the benefit of a simplified contract structure. We'll be responsible for the design throughout. We also maintain control of the equipment through delivery and coordinate that with the CMAR, including the warranty. And then because we maintain this direct contract with them, we'll retain the relationship with the manufacturer and supporting that long-term support of operations. This is the timeline of the procurement process, as well as the design services. In March, we issued that request for proposals. We received the proposals in April, completed our evaluation in May, and we are currently in contract negotiations with a proposed vendor. We'll be looking to submit this for board approval in July next month, and proceed to awards immediately after. And in summer of this year, we'll be receiving the initial design submittals, and design for the dryer will proceed for about a year to be complete in summer of 2027. The general scope of the thermal dryer contract includes a set of at least 4 phases, starting with design to again get the manufacturer on board to support our design team, do the preliminary engineering to get the design data, and ensure that the dryer, the building is built around the dryer. Fabrication and delivery will be the bulk of the project, or the bulk of the contract. This is a standard fabrication and delivery of the dryer equipment. Once we have the equipment, the dryer manufacturer would be assisting with, leading field services and commissioning. They have extensive experience with starting up dryers at other facilities. So I would be utilizing their expertise to make sure that everything gets up and running well. And then after commissioning, we would be keeping the manufacturer on board for a period of a year to provide operational support and additional training to our staff. So we released an RFP because we couldn't justify sole source. We ultimately only got one response, one proposal to the RFP. That proposer manufactures Andritz, who is the aforementioned the major player in this industry. They are the only manufacturer that's able to provide a complete and owner-operated system that meets our needs. They do have extensive experience both in the U.S. and worldwide, over 30 biosolids thermal drum drying systems in the U.S. since 1994, and worldwide over 190 biosolid drying facilities.
Question, where are they based, in the US or someplace else?
They're based in the U.S. and Texas, yes. This slide is an overview of our capital costs for the biosolids diversification project. All the numbers here are the same that you've seen previously in the January board meeting. So the one difference is the remaining work, CMAR Amendment 5, has been split out to the CMAR amendment that will be issued to the contractor and the owner procured thermal dryer, which AlexRenew will be procuring directly. The $43 million number here is a placeholder. That was a cost estimate that we had received through outreach to various manufacturers, including Andritz, prior to the RFP process. And that's an estimate for just a copy paste, their standard dryer that's installed into a brand new facility. So as we're going through the negotiations, the price for the dryer that we're procuring will be part of that. And then next steps, we'll continue our contract negotiations through the rest of this month. And we'll be seeking board review and approval of the contract and subsequent award in July. And summer, we'll be proceeding to preliminary design and then complete the design and move to fabrication in summer of 2027.
Go back one slide.
Sure.
I think the only thing different from January and today for the board is that big chunk of 200 CMAR Amendment 5.
Yeah.
Instead of giving that to the CMAR, we're taking a chunk of that, procuring it ourselves.
Got it.
So that money was going to come out one way or another. We feel it's best kept with AlexRenew to manage this from design through construction, delivery, and installation. So that 205, and if you go back and look at January, it's 205 and 43. So it was what, 244?
49.
Yeah, 249. If you go back and look at January presentation, we're just carving that dryer out as a separate procurement of that chunk. That was previously under the CMAR. We're taking it away from them and doing it ourselves.
Dr. Wong has a question.
Yeah. is the CMAR gonna be part of this, procurement process to help you specify these items? Or no? Or everything gonna be done in-house? We just go ahead, specify it, work with our designer, go to the market, purchase the equipment and hand it to the CMAR.
I think the intent, Dr. Juan, is to have us design, Stantec's our designer. This is very collaborative, so we're designing this with Stantec right now. CMAR's on board already. They're doing work for us already, so they're already reviewing some of these documents, and they're going to be providing input as we work through the design phase on making sure the building is space-proofed and that we know exactly what we're getting. So asking questions to the designer, asking questions to us and Andritz. We see this as a pretty collaborative approach. So they're definitely involved, but they're not part of the contract. It's going to get assigned to them like we did on our early work for AlexRenew. We'll just assign them equipment when it arrives, they install it. But all of those details will be worked out during the design phase.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense because, you need them to be around because they're going to be the one who's going to be dealing with this. You don't want to get at the end of the work and they just tell you, sorry, this doesn't work, or this is this, or you guys missed X.
Right. The other way to do this is like swapping contracts back and forth between the owner and the CMAR. It just gets messy. Doesn't make sense.
No, from the administrative standpoint, it makes sense. I'm just saying, just be careful on taking too much risk and, signing a contract and having the equipment delivered, and now the CMAR start making comment.
Right.
Or, yeah.
And we've actually had them review the RFP too, Dr. Juan, and they had input into it, as well as some of the contract requirements that we have.
Okay.
Question for you. Since CMAR is the construction cost overrun risk is on manager, and we're having somebody else build the major component of the building, if there are cost overruns that relate, how are we going to divide up? Who's responsible cost overruns related to the thermal dryer?
Us. If we don't get it here on time, or we get, that's on us. That's the risk.
So there's less CMR risk to the contractor than there normally is.
For this specific equipment procurement, yes. But the risk is always on us anyway. Right? Schedule, time. We don't do the same thing right now in AlexRenew, right? The last risk is on us anyway to get the system operational, right? It lands on, the risk, I feel, always lands back on the owner.
Yeah.
Whether or not we have a ability to make a claim that we were delayed by the contractor, or that's where we're getting in those commercial issues. Who delayed who? That's where we're seeing the risk. But I think we're mitigating a lot of risk by owning this contract and being able to work directly with the manufacturer to ensure the equipment is built the way we need it, is space-proof in the building. We control where it gets delivered. It gets stored in somewhere it's climate controlled before it gets delivered on site, things like that. And that way, when we get it on site, we've managed the warranty. We've paid for a warranty that's going to start when the equipment is installed, not when it was delivered. Things, a lot of risk. We're mitigating a lot of risk by owning that relationship as well.
Which means the CMAR price should be cheaper than it would have been otherwise. We're taking the risk up.
Should.
Yeah, and the other risk also you need to look into it is, by buying this on the manufacturer side, how busy are they? Can they deliver on time? Those kind of things. What is the lead time to deliver this equipment relative to the schedule of the CMAR itself?
Yes, Mr. Chan, good presentation and good background on this project. Could we go back a couple slides? The one that has the picture of the plant in Singapore. I think
Singapore.
Oh, yeah. Keep going. There it is, Andritz. Yeah. if I'm reading that right, there are 30 drums like this in the United States. What is the other technology that utilities are using other than the drums? What are they doing? But maybe they're not drying their biosolids.
Indirect.
Indirect. They're belt dryers that do the same process, but it's going through this belt instead of rotating. The drum dryer is the only technology that creates those pellets.
It gets you down to 5%.
No, the other ones will get you to 5%. It's just like chalk and dust. You don't have that product, the pellet, that's easily transported and can be used in more than one application.
Okay.
Okay.
An indirect dryer gets you to 5%.
Okay, so this positions us as probably better positions us for waste to energy.
It better positions us for the market in the future. That could include anything from waste to energy to a concrete manufacturer wanting a fuel. I don't think they're going to want dust in the back of a truck. Think about fuel. Think about your best way to explain this is pellet stoves, right?
Yeah.
Pellets come in those nice, compact pellets. Dump them in there. They're easy to manage. Imagine shoveling like sand or dust into your pellet stove.
Now,
it's the quality.
PFAS and the legislation around PFAS is evolving. Is there any PFAS related risk here? Regulatory risk?
I think it's our way to move away from the regulatory risk on PFAS.
Okay.
I think we showed, Mr. Winchell was here in, what month was that? Maybe December or January, and showed that they're seeing some reduction of PFAS in the actual biosolid product coming out the other end. It's not destroyed, but they're seeing it reduced.
Right.
Either goes in the atmosphere through the RTO or most likely. But this is our way to move away from the land application risk.
What if sort of work in pellet stoves? I wonder if they would work in pellet stoves.
Why wouldn't they?
Just a thought. I'll get ahead.
Might be a little too hot.
Mr. Carl, one of the links you sent to ReWorld, I believe they said that their new process or the process they're using can take care of 100% of PFAS.
No.
That didn't seem.
99.9%.
99.9.
So they've studied two facilities, and one in Pennsylvania, I think the other was in Tennessee. And what we've been told by them is this has been in the works for quite some time. And they just had some meetings with EPA to review their work, and that's when they put out the press release. So they're moving great. Their great system, or their great incinerator, or whatever you want to call it, currently is showing that they have a 99.9% reduction in PFAS, and that's a municipal solid waste. That has nothing to do with this at all. But what we've shown is that when we've incinerated our biosolids in a moving grate type, Ms. Dinas presented on that several months ago as well, 99.9 to 99.9999% reduction in PFAS, and that's all getting burnt off in the RTO. We're not seeing it in the emissions. So I think put a pin in that. We're going to be coming in here in July and presenting a little bit more on what we're learning from we're learning at the same time right now from ReWorld. So this is all new to us. We didn't find out except from the press release. It's not like they told us in advance. It just, I guess, good luck.
And this positions us for that very well.
This gives us a very quality product that can be pivoted to a wide array of applications and likely things that we're not even thinking about today.
One final question, Mr. Chan. How big are these devices? I mean, I don't get a sense of scale from this diagram.
So I can't speak to how big this specific one is.
Say the one we're looking at.
The one we're looking at? This?
I mean, the one we're looking to.
Oh, the one we're putting in? Yes. If I can just figure out where the layout is.
The drum dryer is like the size of Hazel.
I figured it was that big.
Yeah, I think there's just like for scale, the building's about 210 feet wide, so fitting 2 dryers into like 210 by 70 foot area, and the building has to be 75 to 80 tall to accommodate the 2 of them. So
Hazel sized.
Hazel size.
The drum looks like hazel.
So
We'll name it hazel.
with it being that big, we're talking a lot of energy. Do we have, I know we're in design still, but do we have a sense of how much additional energy the plant's gonna need? Is this gonna be 5% of the total energy for the plant, or 50%, or?
We have looked at that. I can't pull this specific additional energy cost, but we are looking at options to make sure that we have sufficient power to run the dryer and have redundancy throughout the plant.
The last I remember seeing this, it was going to eat up all of our biogas. So our biogas would power the dryer. And then we'd have to make up the energy for what we're currently powering biogas from natural gas, or Mallory is going to think of something more creative than that.
Biosolids.
No, can you use the pellets?
Exactly. Wouldn't that be great?
It could become sort of a perpetual motion machine. Very good.
But it will eat up our biogas. Mostly all of it.
Any other questions from the board? Thank you, Mr. Chan. Very good. Final topic for today, AlexRenew CSO reporting website.
AlexRenew.com/CSO.
No, I understand.
Do I get an intro or? Okay. Well, as Mr. Payne shared, July 1st, we will be operational on the Renew project. And as part of that project, we also have a new regulation where we need to report our CSO overflows. So if you remember last month, I shared sort of a mock-up via PowerPoint of what that page would look like. We're working on our new fancy website, and it's kind of an awkward handshake moment here where we need a CSO reporting page live on our current site before the new site's ready. So this is sort of the preliminary version, next iteration of the combined sewer overflow reporting page, and then we will have a prettier, fancier version when we launch our new website. But this will satisfy all the requirements of the law in the meantime. This page is ready to go. So if you scroll down a little bit, we wanted to highlight not only the combined sewer overflows, but also some benefits. So the intro text kind of highlights what the project's accomplishing, preventing 120 million gallons of combined sewage from entering the waterways, and then also showing the real-time monitoring within 24 hours of these combined sewer overflows. So the way this map is set up, it's in GIS. You can actually scroll in and out of the map, move it around if you're within the box. You can tap on the combined sewer overflow locations, and you can see images that show where we are. So while this is not the fanciest version, we do have a couple of fancy features. Anytime there's an overflow, these circles will go from green to red. It's also kind of like a stop sign icon there, so that helps us be friendly to our colorblind friends.
Did we have an overflow in the last 2 hours?
No, Jonah's testing constantly, so he has a sensor set up in his.
He had it up here and he was playing around with it to make it show up.
So he's testing like sort of alert functionality and also how it works with the real-time GIS map. So he's got a sensor in his office, and periodically he's just like ripping cables off of it to basically demonstrate whether the map would work. I guess my guess is that he's done that in the last hour because it was green before we came up here.
He was up here with it. He
Wow,
was
some
carrying it
fake
around.
news.
Even though we've got a lot of rainfall that we can do.
Well, so also fortunately that testing's going well. You can see the tunnel alignment here highlighted as well as the Commonwealth Interceptor. And it's a fairly simple concept. I think it's easy for our average customer to read, average community member. So If you continue to scroll down, we also have that area that we pointed out last time. We took some feedback from the board as well. But essentially there's, you want to click on the full screen, right, actually?
Thank you.
That, if you click full screen, it jumps you over to built-in GIS as well. But this is the dashboard that we showed. These are actually linked to real data sources. I mean, we have to manually update it currently, but this will help us kind of automate the system each month so we can drop new data output into the attached sheets, and that it will all fill into this dashboard. So we have combined sewage captured and also overflow to the far left. We have monthly rainfall. Those are requested Dr. Juan, I believe. And then we also have over the past 12 months here, you can see millions of gallons captured, pounds of debris collected, and then overflow events. And on the far right, you have, again, the images that we'll share as we see wildlife return to the host run, and then also the CSO captured in millions of gallons.
So this is real data and will be updated monthly. This is the data that we have just from the host run interceptor and service. I didn't believe it. If you actually look at this, it seems like we're controlling CSOs by way more than we should be with just a little 6-foot pipe in service. That tells you how dry it's been. We haven't been getting overflows at outfalls 1 and 2. We went back and looked at the flow meters. We looked at the model again, and that is real. So since January, 13.1 million gallons captured, and I didn't do the math on the percent reduction, but it's pretty significant for, again, a little 6-inch orifice and 6-foot pipe bring flows to the plant. So outfall 3 has been our most active overflow in these last several years, which is impressive, saying the system is not currently fully in service. So we only expect that blue bar to get more blue, no gray.
And this is not as beautiful as we anticipated being on the website, but it is functional.
That is what it's going to look like on July 1st.
Yeah.
Which is fine. Yeah.
No, we do not have t-shirts for this.
You need to make some.
Okay.
What is that?
Combined sewer dashboard. Sorry.
Okay, if I'm average resident, not following this too closely, what does the 13.1 million tell me?
So that's lifetime combined sewer. Yeah.
That in the
And
past,
we should probably spell that out.
but in the past, that would have gone in.
Yep.
Yes.
And then we're trying to compare that with the annual, which is now the same number because we've only been in service we're trying to do this for calendar year 6 months.
My only advice, and I understand this is MVP, right? It's just getting something out there. A little more clarity around the 13.1, because that's a big deal. And you have to know what a CSO is, and you have to know how to interpret that number.
We can see if we can do pop-ups too. That's
Something like, in the past, 13.1 million gallons would have gone in the Potomac.
for sure. Yeah.
Is there a way to level set that volume? I mean, 13.1 million gallons may make sense to folks in the industry, but
Yeah.
how many Olympic pools or how many something that's tangible?
Sure.
Big, that's a big deal.
We'll add it to the t-shirt.
Or yeah, that's an option. Now, this is important, and it's good to get that data out there.
Do you have any mind going? Are you? Mind if I go back to the?
Sure.
Okay. So one of the other requirements, and this is up higher, but also down below, you can enroll to receive alerts. So initially, this will be a somewhat manual process, but we hope to kind of polish that out and be completely automated. Where anybody that signs up for this email list, and it is functional now, you can click it and sign up for the email list. You will get an automatic notification anytime there's a CSO.
Don't sign up for 6 months. We're going to be getting false negative or false positives where we have the river causing a trigger of the meter. And maybe wait till we get that worked out.
That's part of the reason we're doing it manually first, so we can serve as a buffer.
It's not, then you won't be texting me or emailing me. It's not raining. Why are we having CSO events?
So when
I'm
Jonas,
sure that's gonna happen.
when Jonas playing with his sensor on his desk, it doesn't, makes it like trigger an email.
But it's as real time as we can make it.
That's all. I have any questions or any feedback?
You're gonna stay up there for the monthly report.
Okay, I'm here.
Okay, moving on. Final item of the day, monthly report.
Page 6 or 5. Ms. Waters doesn't have the, any general assembly updates anymore.
Shut down. 2 days.
Okay, so the one thing I'll point out here is the number of delinquent accounts more than 60 days. On this report was 773, which is an increase of 24. However, 53 of those delinquent accounts were represented by a single group that manages multiple meters. So we reached out to them, obviously, within days of this, and then I think 2 days after this report was pulled, they had paid their bills in full. So essentially, we actually saw a decrease 2 days later. So we're sitting at about 720 if you guys pull this report just several days afterwards. So actually a positive trend if you take my spin on the way that played out. We now have 77 or 75% of the total delinquent amount represented by payment plans. So that's a pretty big number at this point. If you look at our delinquent chart that we show every month, and take that into account, those payment plan customers still are in this delinquent chart. So we have a fairly large percentage of this represented by payment plans at this point. Some of the community engagement we'd highlight, we're still continuing to update on social media, some of the activities around the AlexRenew pumping station. So we have some pretty cool content up there, and we will continue to as we get closer to July 1st deadline. We have kind of a little bit of a lull right now, and then we're going to ramp things up the last 10 days to the week before July 1st.
Before we move off this page, the 772 visitors in this building in the month of May.
Yes.
That seems like a record.
No, that's pretty par for the course these days.
It's huge.
We jumped up. We were probably getting about 200 to 300 a month when I started here around 2022. And now we're seeing anywhere from 600 to 800 every month on average.
We had an election this month, the last month, didn't you think?
That was in
recently,
April.
Whatever. It was recent.
Something happened in the lobby.
Well, it's bound to, yeah.
No, the elections are in the lobby.
Yeah, I know.
I don't think we count people coming in for elections, do we? We don't.
We do sometimes, but
I don't think we did.
We didn't.
No, it's the fact that the community is using it.
Oh, absolutely. It does take additional staff resources, so that's been something we've kind of had to shift gears and plan for. Just the additional attendance.
Making donations voluntarily sometimes, no?
Sometimes, not
consistently.
Yeah.
Okay. We're a member of the community. This is what you do. It's great. That's a huge number. And I don't know how you attracted the North American Scrabble Players Association, but kudos for that.
It was hard. All 35 of them. And while we don't have T-shirts, we do have books. So we have the latest. We have the latest in a series of children's books that Moxie's station. I don't think we've given you.
We haven't.
Good. Okay.
So we will hand that out after the meeting.
We go back to Leak for a sec.
Yeah.
What's the status of the online enrollment form that is being developed?
So last month was when I checked with our contact over there, and he said it would be a couple months. So I'll check it back within the next month.
It's done. Remember, I think we talked about last
Yeah,
meeting.
but it was too bad. It was,
Well,
yeah.
they made it online, but they still haven't limited like social security number and a bunch of the fields that we don't want to
seems like that shouldn't be hard to just like delete.
The problem is because Dollar Energy serves so many different utilities, they have this like form that has to accommodate all of their needs at once. And the new version that they're putting out will allow them to customize it. But up until now, it's been essentially one application for everyone.
Yeah. I've just, you know, I have a spreadsheet. I keep track of, you know, how much we're distributing, how much is remaining, and we have more remaining than we've ever had. Like, we need to move this money.
Absolutely.
And I was struck by the fact that of all the 41 customers who were disconnected this month, not a single person asked for LEAP. So that was surprising to me.
It is,
I mean, it's been in previous 3 months was only one. You know, people who are getting disconnected are not taking LEAP funds.
So every, just putting it out there, so every customer that is going to be disconnected receives multiple phone calls, multiple texts. Promise Pay reaches out to them about payment plan options. Anytime they're disconnected, they get a door hanger on their door that has a QR code to multiple languages that shares the LEAP assistance number. It says it on the door hanger itself in English and Spanish. So like we're doing everything we can to get the communication out about it. And I think it's available. If they do call, it is extraordinarily easy to get processed for LEAP on the AlexRenew customer service side. Like we asked 2 questions. They just had to verify their own customer essentially.
I think we may need to take another look at what the actual language is. Like maybe it needs to say it will take less than 1 minute to enroll or something, or like there's no documentation required. There's no income requirement, like to say that. And just, you know, I went back and looked at the language on our website. You know, we might want to just think about even taking out the phrase having trouble paying. Like it can just say it's a credit program for any customer with a balance. Sure. Like what else can we do to make people feel comfortable doing this? Obviously, there are some barriers. I think the lack of an online option is problematic. I think what if there were like an apply by text option? Could somebody text us to sign up? Is that people love texting? You know, there's a lot of people who are yes, when people get disconnected, a lot of them are paying off their balance in full. So clearly like they could afford it to do so. So those aren't the people we're trying to target. But every month, a pretty large number of the people who get disconnected are enrolling in payment plans. So to me, that signals those are customers that are having trouble paying off their balance. And they are candidates for receiving LEAP, but they're not taking it. So I think we should be aiming to get more of those people to take LEAP funds. So I was just doing a little brainstorming. I think those were the main things. I also think, I mean, aside from the disconnection context, you know, can we just to get participation numbers on it, like, can we have customer service just mention it to anyone who calls who has a balance? Or like, they do have that.
I mean, I think part of the other issue is as we look at the total delinquency numbers, and I see this a little bit better because we have kind of a broad chart in the monthly report. But when you break down who's not on a payment plan currently, and then you look at their total balance amount, like oftentimes it's less than 100. And somebody that's missed, they just missed their payment because they paid late or something, right? Yeah. And that trickles into the delinquency report. So when you look at it and you're looking at the number of customers on payment plans as well as the number of customers that have only missed, say, 1 payment or maybe 2, and oftentimes that's just because they forgot, then you're a pretty limited pool. So, and kind of compounding that is balances are shrinking, which is a good problem. But we're going to probably continue to give away smaller amounts, and there's a smaller pool than when we started 2 years ago. So it is kind of a compounding problem, but I take your points like sincerely. I'll take the language as well.
I mean, if you divide the total dollar amount that's owed to us by the number of delinquent accounts, it's still over $1,000 on average. So I don't know, even if there are some big ones, it seems like there's still a lot of people out there with significant past due balances.
The delinquency does include part commercial customers as well, which do not qualify for leave, so yeah.
Okay.
But I would take your points to heart for sure. We'll make a,
So why
we'll
don't we
tweak the
take,
languages, we'll run some more ads.
yeah, we'll take an action and we'll maybe go through and do some spruce sample language. Ms. Hammer, I'll maybe trade some emails back and forth.
Okay.
Get some input. And then at the board meeting next, in July, you've already got 2 presentations. So we'll just add this and we'll just kind of run through what we can,
Yeah,
the language. And we'll get an update on Dollar Energy.
yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Thank you.
I think there's some positive changes we can make for sure. Just I hesitant to say it's gonna, he also is a great fundraiser, so we're continuing to like
Yes,
gain a whole bunch of funds that we have kind of smaller balances to triple back. So
Yeah.
just,
So, but at
overflow.
a certain point, we can't justify continuing to like raise large amounts of money that we're not getting to people, right? We don't want it to sit in an account. We want it to go to people. And then we can get those delinquencies off the books. I mean, it's
Yeah,
good.
we had some creative ideas that we've been kicking around. Ways to incentivize people to get off of payment plans. So I'm gonna say something, it's not exactly what we're thinking, but you make 11 months of payment, we pay your 12th month, or you make 10 months of payment, we pay off your balance. Things like that, that we're trying to then incentivize use of these funds and really drive people away from the payment plans, because some of those payment plans are really long-term.
Yeah.
And that could be hurting people.
Yeah.
From the COVID era still.
Yeah.
So those are other ideas that we'd probably bring back to you all. Before we do it, we want to talk to you before just start spending. Those are ideas that we've been kicking around over the last several months, because we see the same thing. And he's like, I told you, it's increasing. It's an increase. Literally, it's like a broken record.
This is
I need to move my house.
Is that your, is that?
That's Matt.
Okay.
That's what he
I
told
was good.
I told you.
Yeah.
I told you he's gonna.
That's very accurate.
Sorry.
We want reserve.
No, but I
Right, we
wish
want a
so much of a
reserve,
reserve.
but the reserve shouldn't go up
Agreed.
forever. Yeah.
Shouldn't grow.
I think what Mr. Carl was talking about is a smart approach to kind of, it's a win-win for customers. I think it also helps us encourage them to complete payments, because we see drop off on payment plans. So you're kind of
Right.
killing 2 birds with one, catching 2 birds with one.
Right.
Feeding 2 birds with 1 seed.
Okay, there you go.
Right?
Is that what we're doing now?
That's right.
Okay. All right,
Sam,
great.
did that answer your question?
Yeah, and we can maybe follow up by email.
Yes.
Some of those items. Thank
Anything
you.
else in the monthly report, Mr. Carl? Mr.
Kevin,
Robinson?
would you like to talk about your boring mixers, or Kyle, do you want to talk about your boring mixers? Back of the biosolids project? I'm selling you here, I'm selling you.
All right,
Back of the baseboard dashboard. Actually, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Propeller,
Yeah.
a little propeller.
Go ahead, Kyle.
all
Everybody can see
right,
it.
yeah, so the, so these, this month for, and biosolids diversification project, we, we put the new pilot mixers into our T-set tank number 2. These are actually 3 different kinds of mixers. It's an impeller style mixer that mixes the sludge that goes through. And our old mixers have a problem of catching a lot of rags on the impellers, which gums it up and eventually will cause the mixer to break. When we opened up the tank and went in there, one of the impellers was actually just sitting on the floor. It's completely broken off from the old, the previous mixers we were working with. So to figure out which style of mixer will accumulate the least rags and have that problem, least of that problem, we put in 3 different kinds of mixers into the same tank, and we'll run it for 6 months, make sure that, and then monitor it as it goes. At the end of 6 months, we'll open it up and see which one performed the best. So this month we put in those 3 pilot mixers, and we're in the process right now of getting sludge flowing back through that tank and starting up the pilot process and starting that 6-month testing.
Fouled propeller happens all the time.
The worst thing about the fouling propeller is the our staff have like no headroom to work above those propellers. Remember, Mr. Carberry took us in there and he showed you like a hunk of like just grossness.
Yeah.
They're working in an area of low headroom, and every time these things foul, it's a lot of staff effort to get them freed up, and it's not a great place to work. So that's the reason for the pilot.
It looked like a pretty. Wow. Very interesting. Good work. Anything else in the monthly report? One final item from me, June 30th is Water Wastewater Professionals Appreciation. Also, it's the day before the ribbon. Given the incredible hard work and accomplishment of this team over the last year and years before that, I would like the board to do something to acknowledge wastewater professionals. So just give me an idea. Maybe it's a statement from the board, something you could put up on your screens or something like that. I don't want to detract from all the hard work you're doing to get ready for July 1st. I'd hate to see that day go by without some involvement in college. Incredible year. Just think about it. You buy a cake. I don't know. What's up? Tell me what it is. Okay. And also another thing, a very important birthday on the board. Mr. Jenks is celebrating another year.
I don't know if celebrating is the right word. Acknowledging.
Today? Today's your birthday?
Today's my
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. Any other business? Do we have a
Happy
motion?
birthday.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You're just cupcakes.
Cupcakes in there and samosas too.
Okay.
You need more, you need drinks. I'll come back around.
Oh, yeah.
More of this is.
No, just one is good, thank you.
Release cake.
You don't
I don't have anybody in my household that, you know. Thank you.
I think a statement.